The way we consume and share news today is largely rooted in social media outlets, a reason why it is crucial that we look at what's being discussed online. From the hottest issues to trends, for our daily social media minute, we have Yerika Park today joining us in the studio. Good morning.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. Any big plans for the weekend? Or just working?
Work.
Yes. How is that work going?
Work is going pretty well.
The restaurant's doing pretty well?
Yeah. It's the first time we mentioned this on air.
Oh, sorry.
I said no, it's okay. It's not a secret, obviously.
Yeah.
But I said I have a little side project going on.
Yeah.
But I just recently opened a small Italian restaurant.
Yes.
It's going well. It's
And
busy.
I've told listeners before, Yerika's by far one of the best chefs that I know.
No. Thank you.
Okay, well, let's go take a look into the stories. The first one is not so positive. Might be a little bit gruesome for some of our listeners. SPC Group is a very large F&B group here in Korea, and they are facing some angry consumers.
Yep.
After a factory worker was killed in a horrible accident where her body got caught in one of the big machines.
Yes.
So, talk to us about the public outrage and what the company has said.
Yeah. So there's a lot of public outrage right now over what happened over the weekend. On Saturday, a 23-year-old female employee at the SPC factory in Pyeongtaek, Gyeonggi-do province, died. Her upper body was caught in a sauce mixer machine, and it's so tragic. She was supporting her mother and her younger sibling by working at the factory, and apparently she had hoped to run a Paris baguette store someday. Now, the public soon discovered that the factory had continued to operate machines on the site of the accident the day after the employee was killed. Also, the factory had another accident a week earlier where an employee's hand was caught in another production line machine. And at the time, the employee was not sent to the hospital because of their status as a non-regular worker.
Okay. All right. I could see where the public anger is coming from.
Yes.
Now, the franchise is a giant, as we talked about. They have more than 3,400 branches across South Korea. It also operates internationally in United States, China, Vietnam, Singapore, France, and I think they most recently opened one up in London as well.
That's correct, just very recently. Now, after all of this news came out, a group of labor unionists, general members of the public, staged a memorial ceremony in front of the company's headquarters, as well as one-person protests in front of 1,000 Paris baguette stores yesterday. Among the many groups that have condemned the company, the Korean Women Workers Association said it continues to trivialize workers' safety and health. According to the association, 50% of female bakers who become pregnant while employed at SPC experience miscarriages due to excessive labor. I found this the numbers to be quite shocking. France's General Confederation of Labor has also expressed regrets about the latest accident. It announced that it would join the protest in solidarity at 11:30 a.m. Thursday local time. The union is scheduled to assemble in front of the Paris Baguette branch to condemn the company's inhumane treatment of workers and violations of fundamental human rights. And the reason why we're talking about France's General Confederation of Labor is because SPC operates 5 Paris Baguette branches in the French capital. It first launched there in 2014.
Things are a little bit unstable in France as well right now.
Yep.
There's a lot of protests going on that's been spilling over
That's
into
right.
the streets. Now, with the public outrage over SPC growing here, this doesn't only affect the franchise of Paris Baguette, because like we said, they're a giant conglomerate, and they have so many other brands that
That's
they
right.
operate, right?
Yeah, they have dozens of brands, food, beverage, dessert brands. They include Baskin Robbins, Dunkin' Donuts, Shake Shack, and Samnip. Now, social media, as you can probably imagine, has been flooded with related posts. Thousands of people have posted on social media platforms saying, quote, "We don't eat bread stained with the blood of workers." And many have shared the logos of SPC affiliated franchises on social media, as well as various online communities. And they're urging consumers to basically boycott the brands. Don't buy their products. Hashtags including SPC boycott and no buy movement are trending currently on Twitter. According to local big data company TDI's analysis, the number of search results for SPC has soared sharply from an average of around 2,000 a day to over 164,000 by Tuesday. The related search terms included SPC brands, boycott, accident, and death.
The investigations are currently underway.
That's right. As of 5 p.m. yesterday, the Labor Ministry and the police have initiated a search and seizure investigation at the head office of the Pyeongtaek factory. The Gyeonggi District Employment and Labor Office views that the deadly accident was caused by the absence of an automatic interlock or a protective device on the machine.
So I'm always curious. I think the public outrage, the outrage stems more from the company's reaction.
That's right.
Or lack of reaction,
That's almost always the case.
The aftermath,
Yep.
right? And I think maybe Korean corporations are a little bit behind in terms of having a communications officer or because I think the common structure is they just have a marketing team.
Yep.
But marketing teams are not really designed or trained to deal with tragedies and accidents. So maybe that's the issue here, but just the way that they've handled it in the aftermath, that's what's causing a lot of people.
It's very disappointing. Exactly.
Anger.
So, adding fuel to the fire, it's been reported that employees of SPC Group, they've left 2 boxes of Paris baguette baked goods at the funeral home of the deceased, and the company they made excuses. They said that's standard protocol. When an employee dies, the baked goods are sent over as funeral favors for guests. But this is an employee who died while baking goods, and this is just completely inappropriate. Also, the day after the employee's death, the group remained largely silent about the incident, the accident. It just very quietly monitored, I guess, the news reports and public sentiment. It did, however, issue a press release on the opening of its London store, and this is also angering many consumers. So details are emerging, and people are just not happy about it.
I mean, and this is what I'm saying. They have a marketing team,
yes,
but not like a real communications team.
Right.
So I think that's what's happening here. But I mean, I could understand employees following protocol, but someone up top in the upper management has to say, hey, you know what? Let's bend the rules here a little bit. Let's use some common sense. Let's figure this out, and let's put out, something to kind of, I don't know. I'm just going to remain silent. I might get myself in trouble.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Let's jump over to the second story. The world, we've seen extreme weather.
Yes.
We've just come out of a 2 years long pandemic.
That's right.
But scientists are saying that data is pointing to the next pandemic, and the cause may be coming from melting glaciers.
That's right. So new data shows the next pandemic may come not from animals like bats and birds, but from matter in melting ice. So a genetic analysis of soil and lake sediments from Lake Hazen, which is the largest high Arctic freshwater lake in the world, suggests that the risk of viral spillover may be higher close to melting glaciers. Now, a viral spillover is where a virus infects a new host for the first time. And this latest research was conducted by a team at the University of Ottawa in Canada.
So the findings imply that as global temperatures rise due to climate change, it becomes more likely that viruses and bacteria locked up in glaciers and permafrost could reawaken which in turn could infect local wildlife, and then the local wildlife, as their territory is being encroached upon by the humans, infect the humans.
Exactly. Now, this is not just a theory. It has happened in the past. For example, back in 2016, an outbreak of anthrax. Anthrax occurs naturally in soil. Well, this happened in northern Siberia. It killed a child and infected at least 7 other people in the area. And at the time, the outbreak was attributed to a heat wave that melted permafrost and exposed an infected reindeer carcass. Now, before this, the last outbreak in the region had been in 1941.
So have the scientists, have they tried to quantify how many of the viruses they identified that were previously unknown?
No, not yet, but they are going to, and they have yet to assess whether these viruses are capable of triggering an infection. However, in 2014, scientists at France's National Center for Scientific Research managed to revive a giant virus they isolated from Siberian permafrost, and they made it infectious again for the first time in 30,000 years. Again, this is not just theory. It has happened in the past. Now, for now, 2 things are clear. First, the Arctic is warming very quickly, and the major risks to humanity are from its influence on our climate. Second, diseases from elsewhere are finding their way into the vulnerable communities and ecosystems of the Arctic. This is scary. It scares me a lot. Actually.
Yeah, and those bacteria and viruses that have been trapped in the ice for tens of thousands of years, they are old but new.
Yeah.
Because we don't have vaccines, so we don't have the immune system for that. So we'll have to see how...
And these viruses could have killed many, many people in the past.
Yeah, and we are not stopping. Humans are not stopping in terms of expanding our territory and encroaching upon the borders of wildlife.
Yep.
Okay, the third story, it's a little bit related to the war in Ukraine.
Yep.
But seems like the population of men over in Moscow have declined significantly in recent months.
I don't want to get into too much detail about this, but apparently across Moscow, there are noticeably fewer men everywhere. At restaurants, stores, social gatherings, barbershops are also apparently empty. Many have been called up to fight in Ukraine. Others have literally fled the country to avoid being drafted. The massive relocation wave is seen more in large cities like Moscow and St. Petersburg than in other cities. They say partially because more people have the means to leave than other cities. The dating pool has also shrunk by apparently 50%. During the summer, pubs in the city were full. But on a recent Saturday night, most of them were empty. This is according to news sources. And many men have been basically staying off the streets. They drive everywhere instead of taking public transportation because they literally have a fear of being drafted off the streets.
Wow.
Yep. And the New York Times quoted an editor of fashion and culture publication Blueprint as saying he does not see a future in Russia. At least not while Putin is in power.
Okay. Do we know how many men have left Russia since Vladimir Putin have announced that, quote, partial mobilization?
No one really knows, but hundreds of thousands of men have left. Putin said last Friday, that at least 220,000 men have been drafted, but at least 200,000 men have left for neighboring countries like Kazakhstan, which Russians can enter without a passport. Tens of thousands of others have fled to countries like Georgia, Armenia, Azerbaijan, Israel, Argentina, wow, all the way across the other side of the world, and also Western Europe as well.
Okay, some of the tangential effects of the war affecting daily lives in Moscow.
Yep.
Erica, thank you so much for your time this morning.
Pleasure.
Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week.
If you're listening to our program using the podcast service, just a reminder that we do go live Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. Korea Standard Time. So tune in and help us make the show more informative by giving us your input. See you bright and early on Good Morning Seoul.